And class is in session. You're listening to Shit Shooting 101. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Joining us today, an activist with an axe to grind, a warrioress in it to win it, a bare-knuckle brawler of truth and righteousness, bringing the fight to Big Brother's front door, dragging him to the streets for the tar and feathering of a lifetime. She is David Stone to the forehead of Goliath, here to stick it to the man like a red-hot fire poker up the ass of corruption and injustice. It's Brandi Ann. Brandi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you for
awesome.
having me.
Yeah, it's awesome having you back on, Brandi. So we got a lot to talk about here, so I'd like to just jump right in. My gal pal and I, well, good thing she doesn't listen to the podcast because she heard me calling her my gal pal. But anyways, my fiance and I, not long ago, we were doing some house searching for rent. And as it turns out here in Ohio, every house has just been grabbed up by these monopolistic realtors who work through HOA and COA, and it's just an absolute nightmare. And we went to these places where they're way overpriced, and it's just these, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Vivarium, I think that's what it's called. But anyways, these places we'd go to, it was just like lined on this grid where it's just street after street of the same exact house after the same exact house, and it's like very dystopian nightmare kind of
like
thing that you
houses.
Yeah, it's very weird and unsettling. So I would like to just start off there, these land grabs in Florida, if you'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, so right now in Florida they just passed, like, I was in May of 2022, a bunch of new laws that aim at condos and apartment buildings and any building really that's over 2 stories high. So if you're a 3-story building and you're an older building, you now have to comply with the laws that the state just passed. And it happened after the Surfside tragedy where everybody, like, that building just collapsed in Miami. And that was due to like greed and not making sure that the buildings were structured like like they didn't have integrity when they built these buildings. Like, they were stretching out concrete, they were trying to cut corners, they were trying to get the cheapest materials to build at the fastest pace. And back then it was like the 70s and the 80s when these were built, which was like a huge year for like corruption and cocaine and like everything that was coming to Miami. So the people that were building were grabbing the land down here for like really cheap. And they were building like, high rises everywhere across Miami. And then they were building regular apartment complexes. And what they didn't do was they didn't have like, not OSHA, but I guess like some type of like safety standard back then to make sure that the buildings were actually safe and people could live in them. So over time, the buildings obviously break down. And what happened with Surfside was you had a guy that was coming from, I think, Canada. He had a criminal history in New York for like corruption, moved to Florida, decided that he was going to build 2 big buildings. And he probably didn't use enough rebar. He probably watered down the concrete, which is something that they were doing back then to save money. And he was also like the developer. He was also the contractor of the job. Like, he was the guy in charge of everything instead of hiring somebody else that knew what they were doing. So he just wanted, a cheap building pretty much and to make a lot of money from it. So he built these 2 buildings in Miami, and they lasted like a decent amount of time, probably like 40 years, if not, because our building where I'm at is older. So his building lasted like, I would say like 40 to 42 years. But after that, it started breaking down, and they were having like concrete spalling, which is when the concrete separates itself and it starts like expanding because they were right on the water. So you have the salt air constantly coming in, and you have these metal rebars that they rust over time, they rust. So they were supposed to do maintenance, which is a problem with the HOAs. Like, you're asking regular people like me, per se, like, I have no background in like structural building, like, you're asking somebody like me to make sure that our building is structurally safe. I don't know what I'm doing, but this is what has been happening. So people over the years neglected the maintenance on the building, and it started to break down, and eventually it collapsed. Well, the government was complicit in this because they absolutely knew that this building was not safe. They had engineers that were being paid off, and they lied and said that the building was okay for people to live in, which it wasn't. Um, and after this happened, everybody got sued. Miami's government got sued. The insurance companies got sued. The developer got sued. And I think the HOA board got sued as well. And the entire city was just distraught and they didn't know what to do. So instead of like rationally thinking about this, they decided to do like a knee jerk reaction, and pass a ton of laws that aim at, excuse me, that aim at older buildings that are over 20 years old, which there's a ton of those in Florida, over 2 stories. So all these large condos that you see are probably going to have to deal with this. And they wanted to, they have like a few things that are really going to hurt people. So it's funding your reserves to the fullest extent. So like right now, our HOA dues are usually like a certain amount a month, like say like $400, right? Well, that's not fully funding the reserve. So in order to fully fund the reserve, you have to pay like triple or quadruple that. Like I think it's going to be 14 to 1600 where I'm at for a 1-bedroom, and then 2400 a month if you have a 2-bedroom. Now you're talking to older people as well that are senior citizens that are on a fixed income. You have low income people, you have middle class people that just can't afford that with inflation and everything else going on. So you're talking about raising the dues to that extent. And on top of that, they're going to have major assessments done, which if people have never heard of an assessment with an HOA, because most people don't even know what that is, but an HOA is a homeowners association and a condo association is a COA. So it's the same thing. Every year you have to pay into a reserve fund. So basically that goes for your building maintenance, that goes for your landscaping, that goes for electrical, anything that could be wrong with the building itself, you have to pay into that. So like I said, they just made sure that everybody has to fully fund this instead of funding it halfway like usual people were doing for years. And so that right there hits a lot of people really hard. On top of that, you have to get inspections on your building done, which in our building personally, like we've never had a 40-year inspection. We've never had like the maintenance where I live. People were literally duct taping the gutters and painting over it, and that's what they were calling maintenance. So our building has been completely neglected, to say it nicely, and that's probably how a lot of buildings are down here. Like, we never had state inspections like that before, so you didn't have to worry about engineers coming in and actually looking for something wrong with your building. They just signed off on it and everything was okay. So now you have to have a structural engineer come out, and they have to basically x-ray your building. Like it's not really an x-ray, but they take like a machine and they have to go up and they have to look at the inside of your building to make sure that your rebar is okay, that your concrete's not spalling out everywhere, that there's not water leaking, that there's basically nothing wrong with it. And to be honest, if you live near the water, especially like within 3 miles like I do, your building is not going to pass inspection. Most likely it just won't, because it's been rusted over time. It has to be, maintained. And those inspections alone for a structural engineer, and I think there's a geospatial, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, like a geospatial or something type of engineer for the water. And they have to come in and they have to make sure that your building is all right. Those inspections costed a friend of mine that I know that lives in Miami, just for the inspection itself was close to $1 million. So yeah, so you're talking like, say you're a building with only like 30 or 50 people. If you divide $1 million by that amount, you're going to have to pay a lot of money, like probably money that you don't have or you don't want to spend, And I have no problem with making buildings safer. Like, I don't think that what they're doing now is the answer, but I feel like there could have been a middle ground to where you're not hitting people so hard in their pockets and making them pay for the mistakes of the government, for the condo association boards that have been rogue for like 20 years. Why are the owners of the building, pretty much like of the unit itself, getting blamed for this. So it didn't make sense to me. And so I was reading a lot about the laws and I was looking into them. And right now, we have developers. So the developers that just want to steal your land pretty much to build their high rises, they're basically aiming at older condos, any building over 3 stories, especially low income areas, because like I said, people are not going to be able to afford these large assessments. And what they're trying to do is basically get, instead of, it used to be 98%, they had to have a total of 98% to at least to take over a building and to sell the property. So all of the unit owners had to agree that they wanted to dissolve the association and sell the building and sell the property. But now they're trying to get less than 50%. So say you have 40 people in your building and a developer buys 20 units and they can get control of your condo board, they can force you to sell at a loss and they can sell the property and they can make the profit and you won't see any of it. And that's what's happening everywhere across the state of Florida. Like, you have developers lobbying right now on the books for 21%. That's unheard of. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? That's just literally stealing people's homes and making them sell at a loss. They probably can't even sell at that point, and they're losing their homes. And I was listening to this lawyer, he lives, I think he's near Miami, near the Surfside thing, and he helped shape these condo laws. And he was basically telling legislators, you know, like, this is going to be a problem. Like, you can't do this to people all at once. Like, we're going to have senior citizens in the streets, homeless. People on low income aren't going to be able to afford this. We're going to have people everywhere not having a home anymore, and they'll have nowhere to go. And of course, the legislators,
that seems to be the plan, right?
Exactly. And so the legislators didn't do anything. And that's what my point was like, to me, it just seems like a giant conspiracy to grab land from people, especially because they're targeting people that are close to the intercoastal or the ocean. And a lot of these older buildings are still affordable, like where I live. Like, it's very affordable, but they don't want it to be affordable. So they're going to try like hell to, you know, rack up assessments that are going to be millions and millions of dollars. And then when people start to default and people have to, you know, do bankruptcy, developers can come in and just buy them out. And it's not even guaranteed that you get a good price for your unit. You know, like with our building, we're being sued right now by a neighboring condo. So when your association or your condo or even your home gets sued, or your association gets sued, you can't sell your home because no bank is going to want to finance that. If you're being sued, a bank's going to be like, why would I give you money? You know, why would I give you money to buy into this? My money's at risk. So they're not funding anybody. So now you have people that can't sell, they're trapped in here, and then they're looking at steep assessments of millions of dollars. To me, that's just a recipe for bankruptcy, so a developer can come in and just steal everybody's property, you know? And this is happening everywhere. Like I said, the condo building that I sit and look at from my balcony, they just got bought out for like $60 million. And I don't even think that the actual unit owners made any of that money. I think it was just the board and the people that were on the board making those decisions. So that's what we're facing in South Florida when it comes to buildings.
One of the houses we looked at, it was for rent for $2,000 a month, which in Ohio, that's really, really steep, especially for just 2 people in the household. And so it was out of our price range, but we were just looking just to look. And as soon as you opened the door, you were just whacked in the face with the smell of raw sewage. And this place was the most disgusting place I've ever walked into, and they're asking $2,000 a month for it. And the more we looked around, the more it was these houses that were anywhere near our price range were just extraordinarily dilapidated, or just, you know, like I said, foul smelling, and a place you would not want to live whatsoever. And, you know, I'm thinking, what's up with these realtors? Do they not want people moving into the houses that they're buying up? And it seems to play into this conspiracy of them wanting to have all the property, but people not be able to live there, so that I think that it's it is moving towards these the Chinese kind of what do they call it, pack and stack, or where it's just these small compartmentalized. You may as well be living in a drawer of a
Yeah.
dresser. And I think that's what they're moving us towards by grabbing up all this land, and you won't be able to afford it. So you will accept these small, horrible conditions of the smart cities. And
Yep.
when we went on vacation, my family and I, to Destin Beach, it was back in late April, I believe it was. The resort that we booked, it ended up being a smart home, which of course online they don't tell you anything about. We go to the front door and you have to type in a code. It didn't work. So you're on the phone for an hour just waiting to talk to a human being. And then they reset it. And then it worked for a day. The next day, I'm on the phone again for another hour trying to get a new code. And then they ended up eventually having to have somebody come out and fix it. And then the thermostat, you couldn't set it yourself. It would constantly reset itself. So upstairs was just, it was a frying pan. And then there were cameras on each balcony. Of course, they tell you that they're turned off, but smart cameras don't turn off. I know better
No.
than that. And they had smart washer and dryer, which you could basically wash one sock at a time. That's how much of a load it could handle. So
Wow.
the most beautiful paradisial place on earth, and it's an absolute nightmare within the
Yeah.
home. And this whole city that we were in, all the houses were basically the same way. So we were staying in a smart city for a time being. What was supposed to be a vacation wasn't, essentially, because of that.
Yeah.
So
That's like, that's what I've been, I mean, 5G towers and 6G towers, like 5G is everywhere down here now. You constantly see them putting it up everywhere. Where I live right now, they installed the bike lanes, like they're starting to gentrify the area. You're seeing like, mom and pop's businesses basically being bought out, and so huge corporate stores can go there. There's a huge complex that's being built like right down the street from me, and they say some of it is going to be affordable, but the rest of it is going to be normal price. A huge problem with Florida is that a lot of these homes are vacant, and the reason for that is because hedge funds are coming in and buying up everything, literally everything. Homes, apartments, duplexes, like whatever it is, they're buying it. Like my parents moved down here and they were constantly being outbid by cash buyers, which is the banks. And it's really hard to get like a cash buyer that isn't a hedge fund. So when they're paying cash and it's like through some third company and you can look them up, it always leads back to a bank. And that's another problem that's going on down here right now. And that's happening everywhere across the state of Florida. That's happening in North Florida, Central Florida, South Florida. Hedge funds are literally just moving in and grabbing up all of the homes and all of the land. And so it doesn't surprise me that when you came down on vacation, it was a whole smart, a smart hotel city or whatever. Like that's crazy to me. That's happening up there too.
yeah, so where do you see that future of the smart cities going? Is it right around the corner, or what's going on?
Yeah, it's here. It's definitely here. I think where it will happen is like the lower income areas. So like, excuse me, where I live, it's like right on the line. Like we're red zoned, so it's considered like a non-opportunistic zone. So you have like your yellow zones, which is like you have such a percent of succeeding, and it's really weird. They have like a whole map, and it's called like opportunity zone map or whatever. And
Hmm.
you can literally search your zip code, and it will tell you what chances you have in life by where you live. And so I typed my zip code in, and it's completely red. So I'm like, well, that's not good. But other places like they'll be yellow and green is obviously the best. All the red zoned areas that I found on this map are the ones that are being super gentrified right now, like completely gentrified. Like Lake Worth is one of them, which is 10 minutes from me because I'm in Boynton. So it's Boynton and then Lake Worth, and then you have Delray in front of Boynton. It's like everything's a square down here. But you have all of the lower income areas are being completely, they're uprooting people and making them leave. Like in Lake Worth, Florida, we have like a lot of like Hispanic, Mexican, Colombian, Cuban, a lot of immigrants that live there. And they were using code enforcement to basically come after them and cite them for things and just keep racking up bills. And then eventually they can't afford it. And so they lose their home and they have to leave. And it was so bad that there was actually a protest down here for that. They said that Lake Worth code enforcement has gone completely rogue. They are stealing people's homes. They're just stacking violations up when they're not home. They're leaving them on the door. So like if you leave something on the door and people don't get it, or if it, if it flies away in the wind, or if someone else grabs it, how do you know that you're in violation? So this was happening a lot. They were sticking them in like mailboxes or on the ground, even to where people wouldn't actually recognize that they were there. So they were just going to work. A lot of the immigrants work really hard here. So it's like, they're working all day and they're coming home, eating, and probably going to sleep. They're not really paying attention to like the city's, codes and the violations and everything that they're changing. And that happened in 2020 too, by the way. So when coronavirus happened, South Florida, even though it was free Florida, everything was shut down. You couldn't go to a county meeting. And if you did, you had to, like wear a mask, you had to do all of the 9 yards, the 6 feet. You had to wait your turn to talk. And in Lake Worth, they just completely shut off outside meetings. So it was only Zoom meetings, and you couldn't even join them to voice your opinion. So, which is convenient, but that's when they signed on to this interstate compact. So we have Palm Beach County, Miami-Dade, and Orlando. And those three counties, I guess you could say, formed an interstate compact. And they work with the Institute for Sustainable Communities, which is a Rockefeller-backed grant pretty much to combat climate change. But what they're actually doing is making it completely unaffordable in these areas for people to live. And so when they signed on to that interstate compact, now you're talking about ESG, environmental social governance laws. So if you're a farmer, you have to comply with these certain sets of rules, or you get fined, or you can't practice your business pretty much. And so Lake Worth picked up a slight version of that, and they changed all of their rules, all of their regulations in 2020, like I said, when nobody could fight back. And if you weren't aware of this, which they never notified any of their residents, you're going to get violated for that. And that's the problem that we were also having, was fighting code enforcement. Like, they were literally just violating people. They were going up to their grass and measuring with a tape measure and going, well, you're 2 centimeters above the grass line, so now you're getting fined $100 a day. I mean, those fees add up over time. So if you don't know you're being fined daily for a year, imagine $100 a day adding up, for 365 days. That's a lot of money. And they're using that to their advantage, and they're grabbing property that way as well. And so you have you're getting attacked at every angle pretty much for your property in Florida, no matter where you live. Even in North Florida, I was watching this guy's YouTube channel, and he does I guess he advises people on where they should move and where they should live. And he was going all throughout the state of Florida, and even up north towards the Panhandle and where it's considered bad areas, they're gentrifying those as well. So it's getting hit from North Florida to Central to South. There is not really going to be, and then they want to talk about climate change, which really pisses me off, because they still build, on wetlands. They cut down, we have across from where I'm at right now, we have mangroves, and they're supposed to be federally protected. They can cut them down as long as they remove them and then place them somewhere else so that they replant them, I guess they could say. They have to move them and replant them to make sure that they're still going to grow. It's so easy to get around it. So all this environmental, social governance laws, it's bullshit. Because if they really cared about it, they wouldn't be building right on the water. They wouldn't be building on protected land. They would care about the environment, and the animals. They wouldn't let Big Sugar just pollute all of Lake Okeechobee and pollute the rest of the water. I mean, Florida, they can say that Florida's free and that Florida's great, but right now with what's happening, I don't think people are going to realize until pretty much they do it how bad it's going to get, because they're, like I said, you have hedge funds coming in here. BlackRock is actually moving down here to West Palm Beach, so they're going to go for that next. And then you have code enforcement, you've got ESG laws, you've got smart cities, you've got all this stuff happening, and nobody's paying attention to it at all, pretty much.
Yeah, I noticed the racket that's going on in Florida on my vacation when I was arrested because I rented a pontoon. I went out, we spent the whole day out on the waters, and it was a great time for the family. On the way back, we're pulled over by these sheriffs on the boat, and they're harassing us and trying to intimidate us. We're supposed to know all the rules and where everything is on this rented boat. Like, I don't know where the fucking life jackets are. Okay, it's not my boat. I can swim, so I don't need a life jacket. But so they're pushing me around basically, and nobody else on the boat is allowed to give me any clues as to where life jackets are. So what the fuck does that matter? But anyways, they end up, for no reason, based on no evidence whatsoever, giving me a field sobriety test. And they conducted this field sobriety test on their boat, which was rocking back and forth. It was going forwards and backwards and bumping into the other boat. So imagine tipping your head back, closing your eyes, and trying to touch your hand to your nose while you're going like this.
I couldn't do that even if I wasn't drunk on a boat.
Right.
That's crazy.
So they determined that I was intoxicated, which I wasn't. And so they took me back to their headquarters, and I refused the breathalyzer test because these guys have a clear agenda. So why am I going to allow them to use this test that they could have calibrated it to make certain that I breathe whatever percentage is against the law? And so I got ticketed for that, and I spent the night in jail.
Oh my God.
I spent, I don't know, it was like 8-9 hours in a holding cell with no shoes, wet swimming trunks. God. They pumped the air conditioner up because I pissed them off because the way that I was acting towards them while they were keeping me in at their headquarters trying to get me to do the test. And I was just being an absolute asshole towards them. And then when they drove me over to the holding cell, I was calling out this cop for every mistake that he was making. I was like, oh, left to center, too close to the driver in front of you. Oh, that's a hard break. That's a hard turn. 5 miles over the speed limit. Oh, approaching 10 miles over the speed limit. This guy got so pissed when he let me off at the jail. He was like, you guys take care of this guy. See if you have any luck with this asshole.
That's great, though. You got to give him a hard time. I mean,
yeah. And then so I had to pay $4,000 for an attorney just so I don't have to go back and forth to Florida for these court appearances. And I know that the attorneys are in on it too. They're making mad cash from them just pulling over, because we found out that they basically pulled over every pontoon that was rented that day. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, they just pack these people into the jail cells, and then you plea bargain out of it because they have you bent over a barrel.
Well, that's the thing. I always say, if everybody took their cases to trial, that the entire system would collapse. Like, there's no way that they just do it for the money. It's ridiculous. I can't believe that happened to you on vacation, though, in Florida. Like, welcome to Florida. You're going to jail. That's insane.
Because after they told me I was under arrest, they kept me on this boat with my family on the other boat within sight. And I'm telling this guy, like, I'm on vacation. I'm from
Yeah.
Ohio. I don't know boating laws, okay? I don't, this isn't my boat, so I don't know where the life jackets is. That's a reason for you to take me to jail away from my family. I'm like, I'm seeing my great nephew for the first time. That there is my mother. She lives alone. Her dog just died. We had that one hell of a time getting her to Florida because her
Oh,
first flight was canceled, and it was a whole fucking ordeal just getting us together. And now
oh my God.
he's like, well, you shouldn't have broken the law, and they're trying to say we're out here saving lives. I'm not like, how many lives have you ruined? You're
Yeah.
saving lives, fucking
Yeah.
asshole.
What a douchebag. Like that, it doesn't surprise me though. Like I was telling you before, I just got pulled over the other day for doing absolutely nothing wrong at all. And this has been harassment. This has been happening for like probably like at least 2 to 3 years at this point. Ever since I started holding protest against my sheriff, which he was involved like really heavily with the Epstein scandal. And I don't know how he's still the sheriff. Like he shouldn't be there, but he is. And so I had like a huge protest and I spoke at it and everything. And there was like a bunch of people there. And it just so happened that at the same day, there was a huge plant show. So like we literally like had the protest and at the same time there was like a giant plant show right behind us. So everybody was there pretty much and everybody was like listening and they were coming up to us and they were engaging with us. And ever since I did that, it was like, nonstop like harassment. Like anything, just pulling me over, anything. And then I started going to my county meetings and I started voicing my opinion. Like I had found out that my mayor of Palm Beach County, he was basically like this guy that donated to his campaign. I think it was like $5,000 or $10,000. The mayor gave all of our like cares, I think it was the CARES Act or it was like PPE money to that guy, like $11 million worth. So that money was supposed to go to like small businesses. It was supposed to go to like mom and pop shops that were needing, money for the coronavirus crap. Like they needed the masks and all of that stuff. And instead of giving it to our local businesses, he gave it to this one guy. When the company was Majorca Enterprises, and like he orders everything from China. So like he gave that one guy $11 million just because he donated to his campaign. So I was pissed about that. And, like a lot of people were. And so I went to the building and they have their little meeting every Tuesday or whatever, like, once or twice a month. And I showed up and I said, why did you give this guy $11 million, but you forgot about all of the local businesses that pay taxes that live here, that pay your salary? Like, this isn't right. And so after I did that, I think it was like the Palm Beach Post and like a couple other local newspapers like picked that up. And so everybody was reading about it. And so it didn't make them look good. And that day, he told me that I had to leave. I think it was like, you have like 3 minutes to talk or whatever. And I did like my 3 minutes and I think he cut me off early. And he said that I have to leave or I'm going to call the sheriff and make him remove you. So I didn't really care because I was leaving anyway. So I left. And then the other meeting that I went to, because I would go to these like monthly, like every month, because I was so sick of it, like you're shutting down our businesses, you're forcing people to not go to work. How do you expect people to live and how do you expect them to put food on their plate and feed their kids if you're telling them that they can't open their business? Like that's bullshit, especially like restaurants. Like you're only allowing a certain amount of people, like a certain capacity that can function, but yet you look at Target, you look at Sam's Club or Costco that's down here, they're full to the max with people lined up. Why is it okay for them to do this, but our small businesses can't run? That's bullshit. And so I called him out on that. And I quickly became like, we had a whole group of people. Like it was like me, my other friend, we had like 20 people showing up and filling this room. And just, we ended up on the news, actually. It was like, I mean, if you look it up, it's hilarious, but they're just making fun of us, basically. Like it was so bad what the media did to us. Like, they completely made us look like psychotic, like crazy people that, oh my God, we want you to die because they don't want to wear masks. Like, I never once said that. I personally didn't wear the mask, but my point is, I never brought that up. My entire speech was centered around small businesses, forcing people to struggle basically and not give them any help. Another one was the smart cities and the Wi-Fi mesh project, because that was another thing they were doing. They're building the towers at night. And everyone loves DeSantis, but I cannot stand the guy, because he's literally building the infrastructure right now for impact investing and for smart cities and ESG. And then he turns around and he acts like he's not. And so I was bringing all of this up. I was actually going to places that DeSantis was at, like a restaurant or whatever, when they were doing like a, like a press interview thing for the public, and we would show up and we'd have our little protest signs, and like we would corner the media and we would make them talk to us, and we'd be like, this is ridiculous, you guys are lying about us, you know what you're doing. And I mean, there's a picture of me somewhere on somebody's Facebook and Instagram of like me yelling at this guy in his car, because he was so afraid of us that he jumped in his car and rolled up his window and wouldn't open the window. I'm like 5 foot tall, like maybe 120 pounds. Like, you're really scared of me? Like, it was just because he didn't want to address us, because he knew he was full of shit. So those types of things is what I was doing down here for a long time. And like I said, I was going every month to these meetings and I was speaking my mind, and I didn't care. I didn't care that I offended him. I didn't care what I looked like. I called another commissioner out for calling us assholes, like, because she actually called us assholes. And so I called her out for that. The one time I cursed, and I only said shit, right? Like, I was like, you guys don't give a shit. Well, I said that, and it was like, ma'am, you cannot use that type of language, because he didn't like what I was saying. I called out his salary. I said, you're making 6 figures a year. And like, what's even more disturbing is that you're the same people that don't give a shit about any of us. And why are we paying you 6 figures? He did not like that. And so he stopped me in the middle of my sentence and was like, ma'am, you cannot use that type of language in my room. And I'm like, for what? Speaking? Because I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to speak my mind, even if I curse. It's a constitutional right. Don't care what you say, right? I just kept talking over him. So then he's like, I'm going to call the sheriff to have him come get you. And I looked at the sheriff and I said, you want to come get me? Like, do you work for him or do you work for us? Like, and he never came and got me. So he was pissed at that. And then I said, how about you stop, building a digital prison for your children? How about that? Like, the Wi-Fi mesh project that they have right now, all of these things that people are doing behind closed doors that we don't know about. I'm watching you and I'm going to call it out every meeting. So get to know me, and that's what I did. And so a lot of us were actually getting harassed for doing that. My one friend that just ran for school board, she actually had the police show up at her house at 10:30 at night on a school night, because she has 3 children that are young. None of them are over like the age of 13. They're all little kids. And like, I think her baby was like 2 at the time. Plainclothes officer, so you don't know that he's an actual cop unless he shows you his badge. Like, I would have been scared if someone showed up at my house banging on my door like that with no police uniform on. I wouldn't have opened the door. I would have been like, who the heck are you? So she opens the door and she's like, can I help you? And he was like, yeah, are you her name Angelique, blah blah blah. And she said, yeah. And he said, is this your he said, you guys were on social media, which we were talking about throwing like a protest, not on anybody's property, but on the sidewalk, the public sidewalk where you can stand, because you know how like the laws are. So we wanted to line it up to where it wasn't in front of their house, but it was on the sidewalk, so they would have to see us when they drove out. So that's not illegal. And the cop was basically like a pre-crime intervention thing where, smart city policing, they want to do that, where instead of you committing the crime and waiting for you to commit it, they want to come out to you before it happens, and they want to make sure that you're not going to commit a crime. And it's really dystopian. It's like that TV show I've never watched it, but everyone tells me it's like the show Black Mirror. You're like a targeted person, like they find you on the list of like, and this is a real thing that's happening in Pasco County. And so anyway, they went to her house and they harassed her, and she called them out and she said, this is intimidation. Like, I know what you're doing, like this isn't right. Like, we have a right to do what we do. You guys are in the wrong and you shouldn't be at my house right now. They didn't arrest her. They never wrote a report on it, which every time the police come out to you, like there's like an incident report and all of that. There's another special report, I forget the name of it, that they're supposed to fill out, and they never did any of that. So she had to get like a Freedom of Information Act to find out what happened to her, like why they came out to her house. And on top of that, there was a woman with blonde hair that looked like our commissioner that was also with the police the same night that they showed up at her house. So she was on her property and then she walked off, and Angelique was like, I want to press charges. Like, I want this woman off my property. And if she comes on here again, like, I want her arrested because this is my house. Like, she's not welcome on my home. Well, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't take the report. They wouldn't write anything down. They said, you're you're crazy. We're not talking to you anymore. We're not playing your games. And she was like, I have a right to know who is on my property right now. Like, that's not a police officer. Then who the hell is it? Pretty much. And they wouldn't tell her. And then they left and she didn't hear anything back from them. Couldn't get any information, nothing. I had another friend who pulled her kids out of school because it's ridiculous what's going on in the schools down here right now. Pulls her kids out, and then 2 weeks later has the superintendent show up at her house with a police officer. She's got all these, and she was another one who came out with us and was really vocal about the corruption in South Florida. So she was being targeted. And then me, like I said, my home's been raided before. They've pulled me over, like literally just to harass me. The most recent event was I got pulled over. I got dragged out of my car and told that I was selling drugs. This is what they said to me. We saw you sell drugs. Mind you, I was coming home from work. I was literally on the same road that my job is on. So I was leaving there, going to drop a check off for my association to pay the dues, and I was going home. I had groceries in the back of the car, right? They're telling me, well, first it was, ma'am, your window tint is illegal. And I'm like, okay, right? My window tint is illegal. This is a car that came straight from Ford. So they're making illegal window tints now? You're telling me that Ford is making illegal window tints. All right. So I tell them, I'm like, this car has no tint on it. It literally came from the dealer like this. So they have this little thing. It's ridiculous. They have this little window tint measurer meter thing, and they just stick it on your window, and they're like, oh, you see that? That's 5 over the limit. You're 5 over. That's illegal. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do about it? Like, you're going to impound my car for a tint that I didn't even put on, that Ford did? Like, get out of here. So then they said, well, your brake lights are out. I know my brake lights were not out. There is one little light out, but it's not all of my brake lights. So then it was like, it went from that to like, you're selling drugs in a matter of seconds, literally. They pulled me. They were like, you need to get out of your car. Where's your guns at and where's your drugs at? And I was like, what? Like, you guys are out of your freaking mind. And I looked at him and I'm like, are you serious right now? And the one guy, because they were trying to do the nice cop, bad cop thing, because they had like 4 officers that pulled me over this time. Like, it was ridiculous. And so the one guy's like, it's just a routine stop. We do this all the time. I'm like, oh, wow, really? I never would have guessed that you would do this to innocent people. Like, how crazy is this? Like, why are you freaking doing this right now? So I get out. They don't give me an option. Like, usually you have the right to deny a search. I tried to deny it, even though I have nothing to hide. I feel like, why the hell are you pulling me over just to search my vehicle? Like, you can F off. Like, I'm not putting up with this. So I basically told them, no, you can't search my car. You can't touch my things. Tell me what the hell I did wrong and I'll be on my way. Give me a ticket if it's a ticket and I'll leave, right? No, we don't want to give you a ticket. You need to get out of your car because we just saw you sell drugs, right? I looked at her, and then all of a sudden, this woman with blonde hair jumps out of the bushes, right? Out of nowhere. Like, I don't know where the hell she was hiding. She literally just jumps out of the bushes, gets right up in my face. And at this point, they have me in handcuffs and detaining me for nothing, right? And comes into my face and she's like, we just saw you do it. And I looked at her and I said, you're full of shit. Like, now I know you are completely full of shit. I did not do this. You didn't see anything. You seen me drive and leave work. Why are you lying right now? Like, you know you're lying, right? So the officer starts laughing at me. He's like, ha ha ha. Yeah, okay, we're lying. We saw you sell it. Where's your gun at? And I'm like, guns? Like, why are you saying I have guns now? Like, this is crazy. Like, literally on my way home, this is what I'm dealing with. So now I'm out of the car. I'm waiting. They're going through everything. They're opening my makeup. Like, they're just going through my entire purse. They wouldn't let me take my purse, by the way, which I thought I was allowed to do because that was on me. Wouldn't let me take that. Went through that. Was looking underneath of my car, like behind the wheel thing. Like, they were opening the seats up. Like, they were just completely harassing me. And the second that I said, I'm going to record this, they just stopped. And the one guy walked back over to me and left, and the other lady like just disappeared again. And the one guy that was standing with me said, okay, you can leave now. And I said, well, what the hell was that about? You know, you're not just going to pull me over, throw me out of the car, accuse me of selling drugs, rip my car apart. My groceries are fucking everywhere. Now they're going bad because it's 100 degrees. It's Florida. There's no air conditioning in the car when it's off. So what do you mean? Okay, I can leave now. Like, that is completely unacceptable what just happened. Oh, we do this all the time. I said, to innocent people, you do this all the time. That's bullshit. And what people don't realize is, even like, I didn't get arrested or anything. I didn't even get a ticket, but it's the interaction with them that matters. So even though I didn't have any, like, I didn't get anything on my record for that stop, they're still taking my name and they're entering it into the system. And right now, Pasco County has the system going where, and it's all over Florida. They say it's just Pasco County, but it's not, because it's happening everywhere. Your name, every time, even if like you never got in trouble, say you never got in trouble in your life, right? But you are married to somebody that was, or you are related to somebody that got arrested, or your mom or your dad or whoever, your son, say somebody around you gets in trouble. You are now associated with that person. So that puts you on a list. And so even if you don't commit a crime and you're just driving home one day and you get pulled over, it's called like a pre-crime intervention. It reminds me of what Palantir and like Carbine 911 was doing. And I was actually speaking out about this 2 years ago about Carbine. You won't even have to call the cops. Like, all of the data that's being collected and used for your phone, it'll be able to tell them right off the bat if you're the victim or if you're the perpetrator or if you're doing something wrong. It has all of the data that they need and all of the cameras that are everywhere now. Like, this will all be hooked up into a system. So you won't even be able to defend yourself. Like, if say you did do something wrong and you ran a red light, like, you're getting a ticket automatically. Like, you can't defend yourself. You know, it's not going to matter because they have the record of you doing that. And so all of that is what Pasco County is now using. It's like a new software, and they're using AI. And so they're predicting these algorithms. Like, these algorithms are predicting who may or may not commit a crime. And whoever shows up on that list, like I said, even if you've never been in trouble, you're still going to be getting interactions with a police officer. And so they were coming out to people's homes, knocking on their doors and saying, hi, is Steven there, right? And it would be like this 15-year-old kid. They're being sued for it. It would be like a 15-year-old kid. And the dad would be like, yeah, what do you want to talk to my son about? And the cops will be like, well, you know, we're just trying to intervene before anything happens. He came up as a person that is likely to commit a crime, and we want to just talk with him and, you know, let him know that we're watching him, essentially, is what they were saying. So the dad's like, what in the hell are you talking about? Like, what do you mean my son's name came up on a list? Like, what? And the cops were like, yeah, you know, we're using a software and it's telling us who will commit a crime, and your son's name came up. So the dad was like livid. So he let the cops talk to him because he didn't have a choice, basically. And he thought it was just over and done with. Well, after that, they kept coming back. And finally, the dad was like so fed up with them. He's like, you're not allowed on my property anymore. If we didn't commit a crime, you're not coming up to my house. You're not coming in. You're not talking to my son. You're not talking to me. I'm done. As soon as he did that, they sent code enforcement out to start violating him, measuring his grass, giving him tickets for not having his mailbox numbers the correct way or whatever. It was like something totally ridiculous. And they sent code enforcement out, and then they're, like I said, they're racking up all these fines to where, then he has to go to court and you have to see a magistrate judge. So it's not even like you get a trial or anything. It's like a secret court, like no person besides the judge is going to be able to decide whether or not your property is yours or it's now the city's. So that's what he was dealing with. And there's this company called the Institute. It's like a bunch of lawyers, Institute for Justice. They just did like a lawsuit against Pasco County for what they're doing and against a couple other departments in Florida for basically harassing people. And it's unconstitutional because you have a Fourth Amendment, like you have the right to do it. It's just crazy. They're just going through all of that and bypassing that and using it as a tool to harass people. And so ever since I started speaking out, that's exactly what I've been dealing with. It's just nonstop harassment, nonstop getting pulled over, code enforcement coming out. Now we have investors that are trying to basically bankrupt the building where I live. Like it's just been out of control. And this happened to a lot of people that were really vocal down here against the government for the corrupt things that they were doing.
Yeah. That whole pre-crime thing, it's been going on for ages, really. When you look at random drug tests, well, did I work inefficiently? Did I screw up anything at work? Why is it a fireable offense that I haven't done anything that's fireable? Why do you get to know what's in my bloodstream? The DUI checkpoints, you're going to harass 100 people to catch one guilty person. Why isn't that harassment a law? You get to harass innocent people, and that's not a crime. You should be going to jail for doing that. Yeah. And I'm a professional driver, and DOT, they can just do these random stops where they pull you over and they inspect your vehicle. And you didn't have to be doing anything wrong. They just pull you over, inspect your vehicle. And if they inspect, they're going to find something wrong, even if there's nothing wrong, because they have a quota. And it's like the point you made about running a red light. There are safe ways of running a red light. Let's say it's nighttime and there's no traffic, but you're stuck at a red light for 15 minutes and it won't change. That happens. Sometimes you have to just make a conscious decision to go safely. But the machines will read that as a crime. You committed a crime, and you can't even reverse to trigger it to make it think that there's a couple cars there, because that's a crime. So what, they expect you to sit there until morning? It's just ridiculous the way that we're relying on these machines to determine our guilt and innocence, and they are infallible. They are completely fallible, more so than human beings. And I've seen it a million different ways, especially on my job with these AI cameras that they've installed. I had one guy, he avoided an accident that, had he followed all the protocol of these AI algorithms, he may have died, he may have caused accidents, but he avoided, because there was a truck in front of him, and whatever it was carrying, it fell off the back, and he avoided that, but he had to do a hard turn to avoid it. And then he went left to center. So it triggered all these, what they call events. So he got all these points against him according to the system. But he did everything right. So if it was a robot that was driving this, it would go according to its own programming, and it may have killed people. And done damage in who knows how many different ways. But this is what we're becoming reliant upon, are
Yep.
these mechanical systems, these digital systems that are completely flawed, and they're just designed to fuck up humanity in every way possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're smarter than the AI. Like, the thing is, like, AI comes from us. Like, they're learning from us. Like, do we really think we are that stupid that we need artificial intelligence to tell us how to live our lives? Like, I can't get over that. Like, they want to call it like human plus with the transhumanism thing. Like, they're not human, like, they're not better than humans. Like, I feel like it's like a war on all of us, like natural, like all life, pretty much. Like, it's a fight. It's like us or the machines, like automation is just taking over every industry. Like, I think it was like 80% of jobs will be gone because they're going to be using AI. um like you said, with like the vehicles and like the crazy, I can't believe like they even have a point system for drivers, like, I guess for like trucks and everything. Like, that's just crazy to me, but it doesn't surprise me. But now they're gonna, I guess they're trying to have like the self-driving trucks, that everything is just gonna be AI. And if we can't even like, when you like call and you like have to use that stupid automated voice thing where it's like press one, and like they can never get it right, like this is what we're dealing with. And I don't know, it just really, it's crazy that people would let this happen, I guess. Like I look down my street and I always see, these towers being built. Like, it's not helping anybody, you know. They said that they were going to put in like this Wi-Fi mesh project for like the kids, when all they're really doing is collecting all of their data, and they're going to be using it against them anyway, you know. So I don't know, I just hope people like start to realize that and start doing something about it, because where we're headed is not that good when you look at it.
Right. So you're young and you're fighting back, and I don't see much of the youth fighting back. I see it as generation apathy, or I mean, that's what their generation should be called, is the apathetic generation, because what I see here of the youth in Ohio, it's just complete disinterest, and or they just don't know and they don't care because they're so engrossed in their phone, their laptops, or video games or whatever. Well, virtual headsets at this point.
Yeah.
What do you see with the youth in Florida? Do you see any momentum from them, or do you see any way of getting them engaged? How would you approach that?
So I think I was like one of the youngest ones at my county meetings when I was going. I think I was actually like one of the youngest people there. But the problem with the kids, like, they're being active, but they're being pulled in different directions from people that have way more influence than we do. Like, so you have like the Greta Thunberg, like, or whatever her last name is. Like, you have those crazy, like, the climate change people that think the world's ending in 12 years, and they're like completely neurotic because they're freaking out about it. Like, you have people that are they're activated and they know what's going on, but at the same time, like, they're not doing anything about it because they're getting all of their information from like TikTok or Facebook or YouTube and then the news. So it's like they're not actually listening to people who have longer podcasts, like, like you do. Like, you have a longer podcast. Like, the attention spans are so much shorter now. Like, even when I read headlines, like, I feel like we're being dumbed down, like, because I'm like reading headlines that don't even make sense. It's like shock words, it's like, oh, this blah blah blah, like Trump rate it now, like it's not even a full sentence, and I'm just like, what the hell, like. And so you click on it, and I don't think people actually read the whole article, like they literally just read the headlines and then they keep scrolling, like. So that's the problem. Like, I feel like a lot of people are too involved with like social media, like on their phones. Like, they don't even like, they don't take the time to like use discernment or look through their own, find their own information. Like, they go through these channels that are like they're already there for them to go through. It's not like an organic, like, I'm looking for this information, like, you know, the algorithms are planning for people to get certain news for certain people and how they react to it. So I mean, it's like going to be like a huge echo chamber, pretty much, is what's happening now. And I think, like, I guess, like, I've seen people use TikTok to try to get like influence for like the younger people. Like, I've seen a lot of older people start using TikTok, and it seems to work. Like, one of my friends got like 1 million views or whatever. It was crazy. Um, but that's if you don't get banned, you know. Um, I honestly think, like, the best way to do anything is just to get involved with the people that you live around in real life. Um, Especially like if you live in an apartment or like a condo building, or like even like a HOA, or like a small neighborhood, you know, or a small town even. Like, you have to talk to those people that are at your local grocery stores. Like, you have to talk to those people that are in real life and not just online, because you can do all the online stuff and it won't really matter. Like, it's local governments that matter, you know, like the state and federal, like, that's different, but local governments actually matter. And I don't really vote, but if you wanted to, you could literally take over the entire meeting like we did and go in there and start calling the shit out that they're doing wrong. Because believe it or not, even though we didn't succeed that much, we did succeed a little bit in some of the things that we were doing, because they were scared of what was going to happen, because we kept showing up. Like, we did not stop showing up. And like, that's the things that you have to do. You have to just go out and actually do something about it. Like, it's good to talk about it and everything, but I feel like going there and getting in their faces pretty much, and yelling at them and telling them, like, you're not going to put up with this. Like, that's what needs to happen. And for the younger generation, I don't really see it, but I don't know. They're a tough one. They are really apathetic. Like, it's crazy. Like, I tried, like, to talk to this one girl. She's like, oh, you've inspired me. And I think she's like 17, or she just turned 18. And she was like, what can I do? And then, like, I'll tell her, like, you know, like, this is what you can do. And then it's like nothing, you know, like, she never does anything. So I don't really know, but I guess talking to people in your own community is the best way to try to get involved with anything, you know, to see what's happening in your own city. Because they're probably signing on to like Agenda 2030 and the sustainability goals and ESG and everything like that. And you really need to fight the ESG laws that are coming, because I think that's going to be, even if you live in the middle of nowhere in Florida or in another state, like, it won't matter. Like, if they implement these laws, and say you live in the middle of nowhere and you need a diesel truck or whatever, and if you can't have that, then how are you going to get around? You know, like, how are you going to be able to, if you can't, say you can only, you know, use a certain amount of water, like, they're going to limit your water usage now. So how is that? It's just going to affect people everywhere, no matter where they move, you know? And so I think that if we can get people locally to pay attention and actually start showing up and going and voicing their opinion, then I think maybe we would have a better shot at it. But
Yeah, at the beginning of 2020, when the mask mandates first rolled around, it was mostly these young pockmarked little dipshits that were yelling at me to wear a mask. And
yeah.
I'm like, listen here, you little shit. I'm your elder. Show a little respect.
Yeah.
They would park these 16, 17-year-old boys at the entrance of Kroger, and he'd tell you to put on a mask. I'm like, did you study at the Kroger Institute of Health? What the fuck do you know, little dude?
Yeah.
And I became enemies with the youth when we should be bonding over this. I mean, you're supposed to be the rebels of society. You're supposed to rebel against the old ways, you know, the stubborn old men who are stuck in their ways and their feet are concreted to the floor. You're the ones that are supposed to change things and be the revolution starters. So to see that it be the opposite, they're the ones that are completely indoctrinated. But I think a lot of it has to do with the way that we've become so far removed from doing anything for ourselves. I mean, you don't raise your own food, you don't cook your own food, you don't even pick it up for yourself. DoorDash brings it to your door. You don't even go to a store to pick out your own clothing. You just order it online, and you don't even do much of that for yourself because, like you said, the algorithms with the pop-ups, they tell you what you want, and you don't even think for yourself because the fact checkers got you covered on that. They tell you what's safe to put into your brain. And like you said, that scroll mentality, you just look at a headline and you're like, yep, there's something better on the next screen, there's something better on the next screen, something better, nope, gotta keep going down, there's something better. And
doom scrolling.
so you've been on the internet for 3 hours and you have just this mess of nothingness going on in your head. You've really absorbed nothing at that point. And I think all of that plays in to them just sitting around vegging out, because when you've been bombarded in that many ways, what can you do to get out of that?
I also read that like they're like the most depressed and anxious generation.
Right.
Like it was like some Gen Z, right? That's like the youngest, I think. Gen Z.
I'm not even certain at this point.
I don't even know, but I don't know if I'm a millennial or what the hell I am, but the youngest one coming up now, like I read somewhere that they're like the most anxious and depressed generation, which is like really sad, like, and I noticed like online, like I know people like, like they have their own way of expressing themselves or whatever, but I feel like a lot of the mental health stuff is being shoved down people's throats. Like, you need to take this medication because, like just say like antidepressants, like Prozac, for example. Freaking everybody was on Prozac. Like, I know so many people that were on Prozac that didn't even need it. Like doctors were just like, you have depression and because you're a little upset. Like nobody ever asks like, well, what's going on in your life around you? Like, are you eating healthy? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you talking to people? Like, how is work? Like, they don't talk about any of that. Like, they're literally just like, well, you need to take Prozac and you need to get on Xanax for anxiety and you need to do this. And like, a lot of kids are now on a ton of medication. And I was like, I wonder if like that has anything to do with it, because I just feel like you add that plus their cell phones. Like now they have TikTok and, Instagram and Facebook and all the social media apps and Snapchat and like all these little apps that they can download. And they're on that all day. And when I grew up, like, I didn't have to compare how I looked. I didn't have to look at people on Facebook with filters. Like, they're using these filters to make themselves look completely different than what they actually look like. I didn't have to do that when I was growing up. So I can't imagine like comparing myself to a filter on social media that doesn't even really look like me. And then to me, it makes people think bad of themselves. Like it makes them think like, they're not pretty enough or they need to look a certain type of way, which is how it comes across to me. Like you have to look this way to be pretty. And that's happening to like kids that are like 12 and 13 years old, like growing up. Like I can't imagine having to stare at a phone and looking at the camera and being like, I wish I looked like this. And then having all these other kids your same age acting the same exact way. And then everything's on social media now. So TikTok and everything like that, like they just have access to everything. And it just seems like the more technology progresses, the worse it gets for us. Like the more time we spend on our phones, the worse it gets for society. Our attention spans are so short now, like I said before, like so short. And people just seem to suck like everywhere I go. Like they don't even look up like when they're crossing the street. Like I've literally seen people like this just like walking across the street. I'm like, I'm gonna hit you. Like you need to look up, pay attention. But that's how it is everywhere now. And I don't know if like I said, I think the phones have a lot to do with why they're so depressed and anxious. But I read that article and I thought it was kind of crazy. I was like, wow, like the most depressed and anxious generation. Like, that's not good. And but at the same time, they're also like, with politics, I feel like the last, probably like ever since Trump got elected, like they were using that one software. It was AI, but they were targeting people specifically off of their vote, or off of their personality, to see how they would vote. And I can't remember what that organization was called, but it was like something crazy where it was like the first time they ever used that type of technology. And I think France was the only country that was like, we don't need that for voting. Like, we don't need this manipulative technology that's going to send us actual fake news articles and send us real, like, fake propaganda and then shove it down people's throats to make them vote a certain way. Like, we don't, France was the only country that said no to that. And so when they did it here, like, I feel like that just plays into everything, because now you're being bombarded by politics all day long. Like, you have Facebook and you have Google and you have all of these huge corporations, like, specifically putting certain news feeds in your phone to basically sway how you think and how you feel throughout the day. So how do you know that from what you're viewing on your phone isn't making you more depressed too? Like, if you're constantly looking at bad news and you're constantly looking at like polar bears that are like sinking in the ocean and you're so afraid of climate change, like, how does that make anybody not anxious? You know what I mean? So I think that has a ton to do with everything, is basically that, the technology that's just growing and we're not catching up with it. And it's just actually making us worse, and people don't realize it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and when you talk about the mental health, there's been this glorification of being the victim, and
Yeah.
having mental disorders becomes this badge of honor, and it's also a crutch where once you label it, now I can just say it's because I'm ADD, ADHD, or whatever disorder have you. And I just see, whenever I see on social media these younger kids, it's constantly throwing out their mental health disorders or their physical disorders. And it's like, you're so proud of being unhealthy. You shouldn't be ashamed of it, because that's not your fault. That's your neurology, or something that maybe you didn't have a choice over. But you shouldn't be proud of it, on the other
Yeah.
hand.
That's what I was talking about. Like, you literally see these groups of people, and like, it's fine to express yourself, like I said, but to the point where you're like actually promoting like mental illness and acting like it's a good thing. Like, what the hell? Like, that's not okay. Like, there's kids that are like, oh, well, might kill myself. Like, haha. Like, why is that okay? Like, why is that cool now? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, maybe like now I sound old, but I just don't get it, like, that isn't a healthy way of thinking. And you have like an entire generation that is doing that. Like, a lot of them are doing that. Like, I see like, like, they'll have like bipolar disorder and they'll be like, oh, it's because I'm bipolar, but no accountability. Like, they don't have to take any accountability. It's all because of that. And so that's exactly like what you said is what I'm seeing too on social media. And it's crazy to me.
Right. And I don't know how you get through to that generation, especially when from day one they've been raised to believe that, well, you say Generation Z, Z is the last letter, so they're raised to believe that they're the last generation on Earth, because we're all going to die. The Earth is going to go up in flames, and all the viruses are going to kill everybody off. Everybody's going to turn into zombies. They just, from day one, they've been bombarded with all of that end of times type of mentality. So why would you get up and resist and fight if it's all just such a futile cause, because it's all going to end? That solar flare is just going to
Kill us all.
Yeah, so why fight? I'll just bury my nose in my phone.
Yep.
It's sad, but we got to figure it out, because they're the last bastion of hope. So we got to figure that out. There are times that I hope that there are rolling blackouts, so they look up and they go outside and they talk to their neighbors and they talk to their elders, and communication starts happening again in real time, in real life. That's the only way I see of getting through that is things being turned off so that we can tune back into reality.
Yeah.
So wrapping this all up, I'll let you just take over however you want to sum everything up that we've talked about here.
Okay. Well, I guess in summary, Florida, and this isn't local just to Florida, like I said, like land grabs by using code enforcement to enforce fines that for violations that you didn't know existed. All of that is happening everywhere. You have states like Texas, is another state in Arizona that have a lot of homeowners associations. Because when I lived up north, like I never even heard of a homeowners association. I was like, what the hell is that? Like that sounds weird. But if you live in one of those communities, you really need to get on the board, or you need to know who is on your board and what they're doing. Like I'm the type of person, like, I don't want to be bothered by these people, like, I don't like the idea of policing everybody. Like, just let them live, like, do your own thing. I'll do my own thing. I'm not going to get in your business. Like, how you doing? Like, that's it. You can't do that in association anymore. Like, you have to actually go to these stupid meetings and sit there and listen to their bullshit, but you have to at least go so you know what's going on. Because if you don't, like, was what happened to me, like, I ignored it. Like, we didn't know, like, we've never dealt with anything like this, so we just thought we were good. We didn't have to pay attention. We just said hi to everybody and that was it. That cannot happen. Like, we finally learned the hard way when a neighbor came up to us and she was like, Brandi, you need to go to this meeting. Like, our board's been taken over by investors. Like, you need to get your ass there. Like, shit is hitting the fan. And I'm like, okay, calm down. I'm sure it's not that big of a deal. Like, I had no idea. So I'm like, she's being dramatic. Like, what the hell? Well, I went to this meeting, and it was like the very first meeting I went to, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, these people were yelling at each other, grown adults, by the way. Like, these are all like people that are way older than me, like in their 50s, like, like should be mature by now, but they're totally not. They're literally yelling at each other back and forth. Like, the one time, this one guy brought his gun to the meeting, and there was another guy that stood up and they were like ready to kill each other or something. Like, it was out of control. So, like, I went to the meeting and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, everybody's arguing. Everybody's like, I'm calling my lawyer because you said something about me that was wrong and it was a lie. Like, it's just been ridiculous. So a lot of that happens at these stupid homeowners meetings, but you have the people that want power, like police officers and authority. Like, those are the people that will get on your board, and you have to watch out for them, because once they have control of your board, if it's an HOA or a COA, and they want to do certain things that you don't agree with, you really have no say, and homeowners don't really have any rights. Condo owners don't really have any rights if you're not on the board. So if the board wanted to pass a bunch of assessments and use that money to benefit themselves, or if they were, say, embezzling, which is another huge thing that happens all the time down here, homeowners will be paying these dues every month for years, and then when something catastrophic happens, they have no money because people stole it all that were literally on the board. And there's no real accountability for these board members. So if you think you can just sue your way out of that, good luck, because you ain't going to get anywhere. The state of Florida actually requires you to have to go through some type of bullshit mediation period where I want to sue you. Can you please change this? Like, to me, that's just ridiculous. You shouldn't even have to go through that, but that's what Florida makes you do. So imagine being a board member, knowing that you stole, like, say, like $100,000. These people can't get it back from you, and they can't sue you. So why wouldn't you continue to commit crimes and continue to treat people like trash pretty much, because there's no accountability. So if you are in an association that has a board, you should really try to get onto the board. And even if you're like not a person that wants, like me, like I don't want to deal with people, like I'd rather not, but you have to, because it comes down to making decisions about money, making decisions about how you're going to pay your bills and what assessments they're going to pass. I mean, they could pass rules like, say, no smoking anywhere on the premises within 30 feet of the building. Say you don't smoke cigarettes, but you smoke weed, or you vape. You can't do that now. So all these things actually affect you because you actually live there. And that was the hardest thing that I didn't understand, was coming into any type of association. I thought like you could do your own thing, but you really can't. Like, these people have complete control over everything that you do. It's worse than your local government if you live in one of these associations. Like, and you have the cool ones that don't really care and they're laid back, and all they fine you for is if your grass is too high. That's great. But I'm telling you, like with what's happening right now in Florida, people are flocking down here. And a lot of the people that are coming down here don't want the hardworking, regular, low class or middle class or poor people. They just don't. They want their building to look like the mansions or look like a Boca, which Boca is like a really like rich area around me. Like, they want it to look like that instead of how it is now. So these people will stop at nothing to get onto your board, take over your board, buy up a bunch of units, and then they have a majority control of everything. So they can put anything they want in there. If they say you can't drive a truck and you can't park it there, and you drive a truck, you can't park it there and you can't fight back. Like, this is literally what's happening. And if your building's old and it's over 20 years old and you live near the water, or if it's over 3 stories, you're going to have a lot of expenses coming your way, and you can't deny them. You can't fight back. You can't say, I'm not paying this, because the second that you don't pay it, they can literally take your home that way as well. So these are all things that is really happening in Florida, but from what I'm hearing, it's happening everywhere across America. Like, even trailer parks that sit on the land, like the person owns the trailer, but they don't own the land underneath of it. Hedge funds are coming in and buying up the trailer park, the land that they sit on, and then charging the residents that have lived there for like 40 years. They're charging them triple the amount that they were paying. So like I said before, older people or people on fixed income or low income, how the hell are you going to be able to afford that when somebody can come in and buy that up and they'll price you out of where you live? This is beyond like gentrification. Like, to me, this is like a land grab. They're stealing land. They don't care who they're affecting. And they're basically telling you, like, if you can't afford it, get out. And then where can you go? So people that have lived in Florida their whole lives are being priced out of the own town that they grew up in. They have no options. And now, like, if you want to rent, which is exactly what they want you to do, they'd rather you rent than own. But now you have to pay a ridiculous amount of money for rent. Like, a 1-bedroom is like close to like $2,100. That is absurd. You know what I mean? Like, I think in Palm Beach County, Florida, we have like the highest rent increases from 2019 to 2022. So this county in Florida skyrocketed with rent, and everyone moved here from California, New York, and they're used to paying these high rents. So again, pushes locals out, pushes middle and lower income people out. And now you have the rich, like tech bros and all these people coming down here, like with their Mercedes and their lattes, you know what I mean? And you're screwed. And this is a real problem. It's happening everywhere. And people are like, oh, it's not going to affect me. Like, it will affect you. It definitely will. Like, even if you're in, like you're in Ohio, like, I'm sure hedge funds are buying up property out there too. And down here, they're just, even stores, like vacant lots where you had stores, they're buying that up. They're redeveloping it for multifamily homes. So you're going to be placed into these cities where, if you're pushed out of where you currently live now and you cannot afford it, you're going to be set up with some type of center that, impact investing pretty much, which is pouring money into social services for their benefit, not yours, but theirs. And you'll be put up in, like you said, these like little boxes. and you'll have your rent, you'll have your food, you'll have social, prescribing. So go take a nature walk today, calm down that you're so upset because you lost everything. Go take a nature walk. Like, that's what I'll prescribe you to do today. Or, oh, well, here is $150 for some food. But if we find out through, our digital program that you didn't buy healthy food and you bought chocolate chip cookies, then you're not going to get the full 150 next week. Like, that's what's coming, So like, if you don't want to be monitored and tracked and everything is digital and surveilled every step of the way, then you really need to get involved and see what's going on in your own county. Because I'm telling you, like, Florida, everybody thinks Florida's free. Florida has a lot of old people and a lot of immigrants that come here. And so it's like prime for impact investing and all of these things that they're trying to push through with Agenda 21. So when they say they want to eradicate poverty for Agenda 21 and the fourth industrial revolution, they don't want to eradicate it. They just want to hide it, put it somewhere else, and then make you be dependent on the government 100% with everything, and then have those private organizations come in and fund it. And then you're getting pimped out in a way, like, these people are pouring money and resources in, betting on your life. Like, oh, well, she might need, let's just say, she loses everything. So there's like a 50% chance that she might go out and do drugs. Well, we're going to invest in the rehab centers that are right down the street from her house. Like, this is the game that they're doing. Like, this is not for our benefit. This is totally like a takeover, and they will have the most control that they've ever had in their lives over us. And if it's all digital with blockchain, like, forget it. Like, you're not going to win against blockchain and the government basically controlling every single thing that you do. So I guess in summary, I would just say, find out what's going on in your community. If you start seeing, like, your neighbors if you're being priced out, and your neighbors are, and your businesses are being shut down, and you're having these giant corporations step in, or hedge funds, like, it's probably happening where you are too, and you need to fight it. Because once it happens and blockchain happens and they have everything, we can't go back from that. Like, it's going to be really difficult to fight it once it's already established. Like, we're almost there. We're literally on the way there. Like, it's not like it's in the distance. It's here. We just have to fight it and do as much as we can now, before it really is too late. So I guess that's what I would wrap up with, to try to encourage people to fight back as much as possible at the moment.
Well put. So those who would like to maybe contact you or check out your work, where would they go to find you?
Probably social media, Facebook. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really use it that much. I'm generally just on Facebook. I post a lot of things on there, and then I save them into like little playlists so people can go through them and read them. I go to like my local county meetings, but pretty much Facebook's the only option that I have right now to put my stuff out on. So,
well, Brandi, it's been another invaluable conversation with you, especially when we look at Florida and we think that that's the last refuge for us, and you realize that no, it's not. It's very important for everybody to realize that there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. You got to get invested in your local community, and do it for yourself, grassroots level, and quit relying on some savior to come and sweep you up and carry you into the clouds. It's not going to happen. We got to do this ourselves, and we got to do it where we are located right now. Quit running around and scurrying, hoping somebody's going to come for you and rescue you. Not happening. So Brandi, thanks again, and you take care.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. And we'll have to chat again sometime soon.
Okay, definitely.
All right, goodbye.
Bye.
Take a step up and there will be somebody there adding a rung to the ladder. Take a step forward and you'll find somebody has switched on the treadmill. Work your way to the summit and the avalanche will bring you swiftly back down while those on high laugh and mock. You can pack it up, give in, give up, call it a day and go quietly into the night. Then again, no, you cannot. Failure is not an option. Every nerve, cell, molecule, and fiber of your being urges you on. You will not be defeated. If they take a leg, hop your way to the finish line. If they take both legs, crawl. If they take both arms, get to rolling. You will not be beaten. We will not quit. We will take the higher ground. Obstacles of a rigged game be damned. Come hell or high water, we will fight to the bitter end, and we will drink the champagnes of victory, hoisting the trophy of rescued humanity. We are the champions, and we will never surrender our title. Fighters fight to the last bell, and fighters we are to our core. We may have fallen, but we will rise up swinging and swinging and swinging till the bells of freedom ring and echo across the world. Love, peace, happiness. Signing off. Deuces.